Welcome to War Room Impeachment, episode 152. It's 5 February, year of our Lord 2020. We're live on Capitol Hill. We just had the huge breaking news, right? The vote just went down. Raheem Kassam from Brexit fame. Jason Miller from 2016 infamy, no, fame, the master of strategery communications director.
All of the strategies.
All the strategies. And we're joined real quickly. We've just asked, and he's popped on to get his initial feedback. Brother Rifkin has joined us. David Rifkin from Baker Hostetler has been one of the bulwarks here on the Wall Street Journal and on War Room Impeachment. So, David, we just had the vote. The guys are going to jump in here in a second. Tell us what your thoughts are.
Well, glad that this exercise is over, and I'm putting it gently. Very proud of the entire caucus, with one notable exception, which I'll mention in a second. I think everybody has understood that this is not just a political exercise, but one with tremendous constitutional significance. And I think statements from members like Susan Collins, Smorkowski have been outstanding. I think that what I find truly reprehensible is Romney's behavior. Look, in some ways, I wish I could explain it by political cowardice. Not a great feature of one's character, but at least understandable. But given his political situation, given the state he's from, Utah, where I think Trump's approval rating is over 60%, he's not up for a number of years. And the notion that, he kind of gave a vacuous statement trying to make it as a matter of principle. But what principle? I mean, I frankly don't think he has any idea whatever constitutional problems with using the abuse of power the way the House Democrats have used it. So the only thing I can explain is just sheer hostility/hatred towards the president. And that's just a really bad way to behave, even for a politician.
Yeah, and David, this is Jason. I want to jump in on that point because just really boiling down what Romney said on the floor, it came across to me in just a very crass, cynical, direct way. God made me do it. That it was, I'm a man of faith, so therefore I must vote for this article of impeachment. And it just struck me as being very shallow and not very sincere, whether he's saying that other people in the room aren't just as strong in their faith as he is, or that he's trying to shirk responsibility and say, well, maybe if I didn't have this strong faith, it really struck a weird tone, in my opinion. It wasn't a legally based tone. It didn't seem to be so much of this. There's a lot of kind of this pious, self-indulgent moral high ground that he had, but it really struck me as I'm better than you. And it seemed really weird. And I know there's been a lot of talk about what the payback or retribution is going to be here in Washington. But I think it's really back home in Utah, where President Trump, for the first time, now has a favorable rating in Utah. I think this is going to be a real issue for Mitt.
Yeah, just the point about his spiritual claim. I'm Catholic. I'm not an expert on Mormon religion, but I've worked with a number of Mormons in my life and know a little bit about it. I don't know of any spiritual reason you can articulate. I mean, your point is that it's kind of arrogant and wholly involved to hide behind ostensibly religious reasons. But my first point would be, it makes no sense. I mean, what can be a spiritual reason to vote for a constitutionally flawed article of impeachment? I mean, I don't know. There are some issues where the religion does play a role. Certainly, the issue of abortion, definition of marriage, euthanasia, and I can think about a few other issues.
If you were sitting there with Mitt Romney today, what is the constitutional flaw in his thinking? You're the expert here. You've been on this show now for a couple of months doing amazing stuff. Your op-eds in the Wall Street Journal have, quite frankly, driven the direction of this trial. If you were sitting there with Mitt and said, here's the mistake you made, what is the flaw constitutionally? Let's leave the religious aside. Constitutionally in his thinking.
Two simple sentences. The president has used his power in a way, even if you assume he used it for personal benefit, that is not a high crime and misdemeanor. Okay,
Even
every
if it's for his
politician-
personal, so you're buying the dirt. Even if it's for his personal benefit, you don't believe that's an impeachable act.
He did not use it, could not have by definition used it for his personal benefit. He used his power as the chief executive, as the head diplomat, to push against corruption in Ukraine. Even if that is clear on its face, even if he's done it 99%, and I don't believe there's any evidence for that, for other reasons, they cannot possibly be an impeachable offense, because every politician always acts for mixed motives. Every time you engage, and I'm repeating what I said on this show many times by now, every time you ask a foreign interlocutor for some act, could be in a law enforcement investigation, can be trade, can be environmental protection, can be how to deal with a refugee crisis, arms control, fair trade. You always consider, in addition to national interests, you always think about your political fortunes. That's how democracies work. There's nothing untoward about it. You're not supposed to ask for gold watches, okay, and envelopes of cash, or getting your son hired. But you can always think about your political fortunes. That's perfectly logical. So it's what are you doing? How does it make any sense?
So, David, that was let me just jump in real quick. President Trump just tweeted out, "I will be making a public statement tomorrow at noon from the White House to discuss our country's victory on the impeachment hoax."
And as he should. Look, let's forget about Romney as unfortunate, to put it mildly, and annoying it is. What you should do, if you don't mind a respectful suggestion, in the next few days, this chapter in history has not been fully written yet. Every major editorial page, with a notable exception of a journal, is buying the Democrat line. There's a piece by Ruth Marcus in today's Washington Post pontificating about what has Trump learned from it. He's learned nothing. He is going to continue doing bad things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The notion that the president's defenders, including Professor Dershowitz and yours truly, advocating unlimited exertion of presidential powers, Republic is in peril. All of it is just total garbage. The real issue is what that has to be registered. It's the House Democrats that have tremendously abused their constitutional power. That's done, to put it crisply, the exact opposite of what the framers wanted the impeachment to look like. Realizing framers' worst nightmares about impeachment, okay? They've been talking about framers' nightmares about, abusive executives. The nightmare was primarily about abusive legislature, and particularly about abusive House. They have just, not to get macabre here, if framers, if there is such a thing as, being able to discern from up above what's happening on this earth, the framers are tremendously depressed.
Okay, what
that's
about
what needs to be emphasized?
What's the second? You said there's two flaws constitutionally in his thinking. What's the second flaw? You got the first, that this is not an impeachable act. What's the second?
Well, the second flaw is by buying into this notion, you're lending, some modicum of legitimacy, because they're going to talk. In essence, what he's done, and I hate to put it this way, maybe I'm overreading it, he rescued a little bit, a touch, the utterly partisan impeachment process. And the Democrats are going to say now, it's a little bipartisan. Mm-hmm. So the fundamental problems that we discussed for weeks now with impeachment have been both the substantive content of articles, the legal theories that animate them, as well as how it was driven by the House. So he gave a House attaboy. He gave Nancy Pelosi attaboy. He made her day. And I think it's reprehensible, and then some.
David, before you jump, last thing, you said the editorial pages of the nation's papers, besides the Wall Street Journal, are being flooded now with the Democrats' opposite. What is their principal argument they're making is what? How would you define that for our audience?
The principal argument is that the senators have just propitiated Trump, abandoned their constitutional oaths, fidelity to constitutional oaths. They have just basically gave President Trump a pass to engage in the future in high crimes and misdemeanors without any political payback, and therefore they have destroyed the Constitution. Total unadulterated garbage. But it's not enough to say it's unadulterated garbage. There has to be response. Look, the Senate has stopped the madness, and that's good. But what the House has done, I'm afraid, is an important and sad page in history. It needs to be called as such. There has to be a postmortem. My hope, a political postmortem, not to be biased here, partisan, is we're going to take back the House. But still, that's not enough. I mean, the fact that every law professor, literally, with possible exception of Alan Dershowitz and myself and maybe one more person I know of, okay, every law professor in this country has been buying into the Democrat legal theories. Every major newspaper, every, again, with possible exception of Fox News, every major TV and radio channel, that is a very bad thing because history gets written by those who scream the loudest, not by those who are righteous.
Last thing before you go, was there any, constitutionally, let's leave the politics aside, in this exercise the nation's been forced to go through for the last couple of months, in your mind, did any good come from it?
No, I would have preferred for it never to happen. The way I would put it, damage was ameliorated by the Senate acquittal and how it was justified by most members, including particularly Mitch McConnell, who I think done a sterling job. But there's enormous difference. Look, it's like getting a horrible disease like cancer and, getting very effective treatment so it's in remission. Okay, this is better than the alternative, God forbid. But it doesn't mean it would have been better not to get it in the first place. So I cannot give you any more optimistic assessment than that.
David Rifkin from Baker Hostetler, one of the mainstays in the op-ed section of the Wall Street Journal and also on the show. Thank you very much, David. Be looking forward to talking to you in the days and weeks ahead.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys. Tell me what's your assessment? We got our constitutional scholar, Raheem. You've been jotting down. Actually, Raheem is stunning. We came 100. How many? Give me the show because we came all this way, and you're finally writing stuff down.
Because dry January ended, now I have to write stuff down. My brain is now addled again. Okay, let me have a quick run at this. Okay.
Okay.
108 days, 152 episodes. That's 3 months and 16 days, millions of dollars, thousands of column inches, dozens of Don Lemon tantrums got us to this point in time. You know what I have right here?
Tens of millions of dollars.
Tens of millions of Don Lemon tantrums.
What would that be, brother?
These are the articles of impeachment. I'm going to do the honors right here, live on air. Thank you, Nancy Pelosi, for the idea. For those of you not watching.
Does that make you a Nancy boy?
I'll own that just to rip those up. I want to play the moment that it all happened moments ago on the floor of the U.S. Senate. Of course, now would be the moment where our historical tech issues kick in. But on the floor of the U.S. Senate,
I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, it's brilliant. I mean, this is exactly. It goes according to plan every time. I'm just loading up the clip here. But moments ago, on the U.S. Senate, on the floor of the U.S. Senate, President Trump was acquitted of both articles of impeachment. I'm going to try and bring you that clip right here.
The presiding officer directs judgment to be entered in accordance with the judgment of the Senate as follows. The Senate, having tried Donald John Trump, President of the United States, upon 2 articles of impeachment exhibited against him by the House of Representatives, and 2/3 of the senators present not having found him guilty of the charges contained therein, it is therefore ordered and adjudged that the said Donald John Trump be, and he is hereby, acquitted of the charges in said articles.
And that's it. That's all she wrote.
One thing I want to add in here, make sure we're not losing sight of this fact. When you talk about a messaging MVP in this process, you really got to give President Trump credit for how he ran this game. Unity and substance, like you've said all along, Steve. And I think it was quite remarkable. I mean, the way that, look, just being on the level here, we're in Washington. We have a lot of people in town who work on the Hill or in and out various parts of government. There was a lot of chatter early on that we might have some people wobbling. I mean, we would hear reports, maybe there are 20, 30 Republicans who are ready to go on the House side. There are upwards of 10, maybe a dozen. You could get to that number real quick over on the Senate side. Didn't happen. Out of all of the House and the Senate Republicans combined, you had one Willard Mitt Romney was the only one, and he's a small, bitter, jealous man who looks in the mirror and wishes he could see Donald Trump in the reflection.
You're not buying the spiritual journey. You're not buying the spiritual exercises of Governor Romney.
No,
Or Senator Romney, I guess he is now.
I see a man who is bitter that he's not president of the United States, who is sad that all of his money in the world couldn't buy him a Secretary of State position, and who's always wanted to be something bigger and better than what he is. What he realizes is right now he's stuck, and he's never going to get past that hurdle to be a president.
Well, this would be up until now, unless something else happens in the future. He'll be remembered, not for his presidential run, his failed effort to beat Barack Obama. He'll be remembered for this moment, for this vote.
Yeah, not governor of Massachusetts, not the one who saved the Winter Games in Salt Lake
Olympics,
City.
yep.
He will be remembered as this, is the absolute political traitor who turned his back. Again, put the whole President Trump and the National Republican Party, which, by the way, I think it's pretty politically shameful what he did, considering, Rana's running the RNC. Why go and put her in that position? I think that's terrible. But think about all the constituents, all the people that voted for him back in Utah. And they have to be looking like, man, when are we going to get rid of this loser? They got to wait 4 more years.
Well, you may say that, and the public and the Republican base may agree, but Mitch McConnell doesn't agree. Mitch McConnell, at the end of this process, saying today, we don't have any dog houses here. The most important vote is the next vote, expressing an interest, effectively, in immediate forgiveness for Willard Mitt Romney.
And did he announce when the Senate Judiciary Committee is impaneled now to sit down and start the subpoenas are going out?
Not a sausage.
So let me go just
yeah.
real quick
Go ahead.
to my own spiritual leader for a moment, Don Jr., who's tweeting out, and that's, and just so anyone knows, like I'm smiling when I say that, so that's I'm joking.
Headline on Media Matters.
Yeah, exactly. He has the hashtag. Actually, that'd probably be
What a full heckle.
That'd be a step up for me on Media Matters.
Yeah,
It'd be hashtag expel Mitt. He's retweeting someone saying that Mitt Romney is flip-flopped on literally everything. Retweeting a former Romney person saying that.
Correct me if I just want to make sure we go into there. Didn't President Trump didn't he endorse Romney?
Oh,
He did.
You got to bring it up because there was a lot of us at the time said, they're not Romney fans, just couldn't understand. President Trump's very forgiving of people. He's always trying to work together with people. But the Romney thing was pretty obvious. I mean, Romney was running for the Senate. At his age and his money, you can do whatever you want to do. He wanted to come back to the Senate to, quote unquote, I think he said, to be the conscience of the Senate, right?
Yeah, I mean, but let's look at it.
In my conscience, I mean, I want to say, I want to just, trash or badmouth everything President Trump's trying to do because I don't believe in any of this. I don't believe in his trade policies. Certainly don't believe in his immigration policies. I don't believe in America First national security policy. I don't believe in his economic policy. I don't believe in any of it.
Right. And I mean, we knew how today's votes were going to turn out. I mean, nobody woke up this morning and is there going to be a magical, could Trump be found guilty on either one of these articles? But the Romney decision means that it's amplified. He's in the spotlight. This is something that's forever going to be a
But
stain
Mitch
on
McConnell is the one that talked Trump into endorsing Romney. And then Mitch McConnell today is the one that's saying, "Hey, we have no doghouses here."
You know what?
I'm not trying to put pure. You're not at Jamestown anymore. You're not going to get any more business from the Republican establishment.
No.
Okay.
I'm going to throw the challenge flag on this one. I think this was a last second. Going back to Romney's race. I think this was the last second heckle from President Trump.
You think it was a heckle to endorse him?
Yeah. Yeah, I think he did it at the end because what's Romney going to do? Come out and say, I don't want your endorsement? It's down in the final stretch. He's either going to win with 69 or 72% of the vote. The presidential endorsement bumped him up a couple more points on the home stretch. It wasn't as though Mitt Romney actually...
But it meant something. Look, President Trump lost 25% of the vote in Utah, right, to these guys that went out there. President Trump today is more popular than Romney. His polling in Utah is off the charts.
Oh, and what the quick reaction polls
because
look
they've
like?
seen his actions. They've seen the way his actions are driving his presidency. That's where they're coming around.
Yeah, but President Trump's endorsement, though, of Mitt Romney didn't mean anything for him actually winning.
Oh, I know
Senate
that. I
race.
know that.
Right.
It was all symbolic.
But it was also then President Trump wanted
Didn't
to
you
come
think
back.
that this day was coming, though, where Mitt would do something when it came down to a crucial vote, would pull a John McCain, right?
I didn't think on this. I mean, if there was going to be something, and let's look at the actual profiles.
You
of
actually
courage.
thought that after Collins and after Murkowski
Yes.
and Alexander and others, threw in the towel, that there was no way that he would do this.
Yeah, I felt confident that that Mitt Romney, just in people that I was talking to, people who had talked with him, that he didn't want to be the one person. Maybe if you had, say, a Murkowski, maybe if you had a Collins, maybe if there was a little bit of a safety in numbers, so there were a couple people who, quote unquote, were voting their conscience or doing this thing. But for Romney to go out and literally, again, there were no Republicans who defected in the House. He was the only Republican who defected in the Senate. What is it that Mitt Romney knows that no other Republican on Capitol Hill does? Only thing there is his ego.
Raheem, you've been an expert looking at this for many, many years. We're in the beatification process of Lev Parnas, Mitt Romney, and somewhat Bolton, right? The beatification process. The media is all in on these guys. They have literally no downside besides getting beat up by President Trump and Don Jr. in the Trump base, right? But to the higher ground of book deals and all that. Remember, Lev Parnas was in the waiting room next to the kid. They wanted to bring him onto the floor, the Democrats. I mean, right now, the opposition party media, the Democrats have melded into one thing.
And I mean, it's not doing anything. It's not resulting in anything at the moment. I mean, you look at what we went through this morning, right? Where we stand. Iowa, an absolute shambles. You have the acquittal.
By the way, where are they right now? What percentage of voters?
75, I believe. We've notched up 4%
actually,
since this morning.
We have breaking news there on that front.
Oh.
No, hold on. It's up to 85% reporting. I even wrote this down. But here's the thing. This is so great. Just real quick. So Bernie Sanders won the quote-unquote popular vote.
Which they don't count now because they don't like Bernie. This is the thing.
Right.
They come up a whole new thing.
So it's the delegates by county, and they weight it. So they're trying to say, oh, this is like the Electoral College. So on the actual vote, Bernie beat Pete by like a point or a point and a half. But then on the delegates, Pete's up by 3 points over Bernie. It's civil war. This is so great.
I have more breaking news on that, Jason. You said 85?
Yes.
We're up to 86% now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is heating up. Iowa is heating up.
What's the over and under when President Trump goes on at noon tomorrow? They still are not at 100%. If you're not, Iowa, just phone him in because you'll get the biggest heckle in human history if you're not. He will call you out in the first couple of minutes. Raheem, how can people get to the site, get more
What
info?
site? I deleted everything. It's over. There's no warroom.org anymore.
Everything redirects to RaheemKassam.com.
We're going to come back to episode 152 in a moment.
War Room, Impeachment, Bannon, Miller, Kassam. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Live from Capitol Hill, it's episode 152 of War Room Impeachment. We're just yards away from where the trial of Donald John Trump just wrapped up. Historically, it'd be around 4:42, around 4:40 the vote was taken. Here with Raheem Kassam, Jason Miller. And remember, we're going to keep War Room Impeachment. It's going to be on until the day after the acquittal of Donald John Trump. So tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, you hear us as usual. And, you know, we'll have announcements tomorrow. Don't fret out there, and particularly folks that are religious followers of this.
4 more years.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere. And we'll be able to talk tomorrow about how that's all going to play out. We got the War Room pandemic. We've got other war rooms we're talking about, and but just make sure that on Friday at 9 o'clock you're still there. Tomorrow, very special show. Right now we tentatively have Matt Gaetz.
100%. It just confirmed again.
100%. Matt Gaetz is going to be the fire breather who changed the arc of this effort. Historic day. We'll put it more in perspective tomorrow because it's just hot. These are all the hot takes, but the hot takes is that it was I think, particularly as the pandemic goes forward, as the business goes forward, as we get into 2020, people are going to look back to this. I think the most important thing they're going to see is the opportunity cost. The nation, and I got to tell you, we're strong and powerful. We're the greatest nation that's ever happened in the history of the world. Everybody that's American understands how providentially, how lucky they are to be an American, to be part of this, to be part of this story that drives forward every day. But we take for granted, particularly in a troubled world, in a world you've seen this pandemic where it can come out of nowhere, that we have taken very much for granted that we can do things like that. This was an opportunity cost when we should have focused on the business of the nation, and yet Nancy Pelosi, for purely political reasons, is put us into a constitutional crisis for political reasons. She understands, and we're going to talk about New Hampshire and things right now. They do not have the firepower as far as personalities go on the campaign trail. They do not have the policies. The policies are being even more radicalized, and she understands AOC and the socialist left have dragged them to things, so they can't sell to the middle class in this country. They've got to destroy Trump. And she finally thought she had a very weak card here, but she played it to defeat Trump. I think in hindsight, that's going to be, listen, you can say a lot of things about President Trump, and if you don't like President Trump, his house style, he may irk you. Maybe you don't like his policies. There's certainly one thing. He is not a clear and present danger to the United States of America. Given those accomplishments he laid out yesterday, and people can argue, oh, he's lying, he's exaggerating. He is not a clear and present danger. To wit, if you're going to do this on something in the Constitution, you should do it the proper way, right? And not not the way this thing was jury-rigged. He's not a clear and present danger. That is an outrage. And to me, that's why I believe the president must do this. He must force the review of the crime of the century, where Donald Trump has said from the beginning, this is not about me. This can never happen to another president. And if we don't get on top of this thing now, it's going to happen to other presidents. You know, for all the AOC followers and the Bernie Sanders followers, don't think your turn in the barrel is not coming, right? This is the system will be set up to do this. Exactly what the framers warned us about is now going to become a reality. That's why President Trump has to go put the spotlight on this, and we have to go find out who the real culprits are.
Absolutely. In fact, ABC News' Terry Moran was channeling his inner Steve Bannon just a little bit ago when he said that Democrats have, quote, spent years trying to drive this president from office. What was the opportunity cost of that? So even many folks in the media get it. Now, we know that many of the haters, the Morning Joes, the CNN New Days, they'll be back on tomorrow morning with something else. You know, hear Republicans being mean to Mitt Romney. You know, that's I can see them. You know, that's their driving thing today. What kind of message does this send? But Steve, I think your broader point is exactly right. That when the historians look back on this, I think they're going to see a disunited, scrambled, error-prone, deranged Democratic Party that can't figure out who they want for a nominee, who is so driven by their hatred for President Trump that they literally held the country hostage. And again, not just since the formal articles were launched a few months back, but you had 6 of the 7 House impeachment managers who campaigned and called for his impeachment before the July 25th call ever even
Trump
happened.
and Trumpism. They hate President Trump personally. He triggers something in them. But they also hate Trumpism, and quite frankly, they hate his followers.
I just want to go back to something about this morning as well. We talked about the CNN's annotated line-by-line take down of the State of the Union. There were some snarky comments in there and things that were unfair. But actually, on further review, as I looked at it later on this afternoon, I have to say that CNN was actually relatively fair about it throughout most of it. They gave the president credit where it was due. They had multiple fact checks in their article that said the president is correct, the president's sources are right, the president's numbers are correct, all of this stuff. And they had one bit in there which was interesting to me as well, where they talked about the moment where the president gave a scholarship to a young girl during the procedures last night. They said this was an incredible moment, paired with the awarding the girl a scholarship and giving Rush Limbaugh a medal right there in the House chamber. It's clear that Trump is bringing a reality TV flair to the State of the Union address. And I thought that was a very nice sentiment and admission of how...
I don't know if reality TV flair, they meant that as a compliment.
No, I mean, look, CNN does its reality TV things. I don't know that they look down their noses at that all that much. They had... was it Reza Aslan eating brain or something on TV? I don't know, whatever. I just want to go through the headlines because CNN's currently leading with Iowa on television. You know, after one of the biggest.
Let's get at it. Let's get at Washington. Let's get this thing past us.
After one of the biggest moments in history, they're pivoting.
That they've dedicated all of their coverage to.
And by the way, Iowa, remember, has only ticked up 1% in the last couple of hours. So it's not like we've got big breaking news out of Iowa, but that's CNN.
You're not
right
hanging
now.
on Dubuque. West Dubuque is coming in.
The CNN website reads in big, bold caps, Trump acquitted. The New York Times, Trump acquitted. The Washington Post, Trump acquitted. Drudge Not Guilty, but no siren. That's how you know Drudge is sold out. The Bongino report.
Wow.
Hey, the Bongino report.
You know that you read the tea leaves.
President Trump acquitted forever. The LA Times. Senate acquits Trump. Romney breaks with party on first impeachment charge. Yahoo News. Senate acquits President Trump in historic vote. MSNBC. It's over. And my favorite is the Huffington Post, as always. The Senate's verdict, Trump above the law.
SV Date, you gotta love it. Hold on, we've got our producing partner John Fredericks on the line. John, you got Raheem, Steve, and Jason. How you doing, sir?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, guys. I really appreciate it. You're doing a great job. I just want to share with our audience that you guys really were the forebearer to all of this, coming on with a show, putting it on. You were the first one to say, hey, we got a problem here. The president's going to get impeached before Christmas. The White House was blowing it off. They had no plan. You guys got to remember back when this thing started. And when you started War Room, the White House started listening to it. You could see them on Fox and CNN throughout the day, picking up exactly the talking points that you had. You also inspired them, gentlemen, to get their own War Room, bring in Pam Bondi, bring in Tony Say. People forget this. And remember, it was you all on War Room who said granularity and unity, right? Remember that? Let's take facts and detail. Let's get the facts out and stop the nonsense. You got that, and you said unity number 2. Through 2 houses, you had 1 defection. I mean, this was really the
elevator pitch.
The elevator pitch.
Elevator pitch?
By the way, John, we wanted to introduce John Fredericks, our head of sales. John, thanks for the. But no. Listen, there were so many good people.
I've been there from the beginning,
Yeah.
and you deserve to take.
Well,
a
no.
huge
Look, the
amount of
RNC, the White House, the campaign, other outside groups. One of the things I think was amazing is everybody came together. I think everybody at about the same time realized that Nancy Pelosi, in the mainstream media, if you give them unlimited shots on goal, the president is the best messenger. He and his messaging to this thing has been brilliant. But you need to amplify that, and you need everybody to come together. They've got the high ground of the media, and they were, quite frankly, killing us. I think everybody came together, and one of the things that I'm most proud of is the very first guest we had on the live show, which was 2 days after we started the dry run, was Mark Meadows. The next day was Matt Gaetz. These people had been down there, and they had been telling their story, but it was buried in paragraph 10 of the Washington Post. You saw where the buried leads were. You could see the reality. You could see that substance and granularity. It was a perfect call, right? All you had to do was start to line up everybody to say in unison, and this is what I think the biggest thing that everybody did, from the White House to RNC to the campaign to other outside groups, was to shift the elected officials in the city from this, oh, well, it wasn't perfect, but it's not impeachment. No. Everybody lined up about in back of President Trump, and even today you had a couple of, Rubio, and you had a couple of people that, but 90% of the Senate agreed. The Republican senators agreed with the fact of the call was fine, and this is what he was hired to do. So, John, I greatly appreciate the shout out. It was a team effort.
You guys work 7 days a week. I mean, that was the other thing, Stephen K. Bannon, that you said. You said we're going to go 7 days a week. There are no days off when the president's going to get impeached. Now, I got to tell you, everybody chafed at that. You were absolutely correct in that, in going 7 days a week, because it raised the stakes of what was going on. The final thing I just have
Well, hold on. I wanted to say about the 7 days a week. Here's the reason, particularly in the media cycle way it works. I knew immediately, just from the years of Breitbart and others doing radio, they were going to have big Friday night dumps. And that unless you were able to have guys like Jason Miller and Raheem Kassam, fighters who know what they're doing, Saturday was going to be a huge day, because Saturday was going to set the table for Sunday. And it was the Sunday talk shows were going to be the railhead. Saturday and Sunday became as important, maybe even more important, than Tuesday and Wednesday. The big dump on Friday. If you're just crickets and you don't have it, then they're going to be able to dominate the news. You've got to be able to message that. You've got to be able to jump in here. Weekends, particularly for conservatives, are absolutely essential to reverse the news cycle they're trying to do, because the railhead of these things is those Sunday shows. And that's why I think that one of the things the show did was say, hey, it's got to be 7 days a week because they are here to basically politically kill him. Right? They're out here to destroy him. They're in full destruction mode now.
Well, and I think that, just to jump in here for a moment, I think this takes us back to the campaign in the September, particularly in October, mid-October of 2016, when we were just getting pounded. Not every day, but every hour. There was some new devastating. I remember once we
heavy
had
ordnance.
heavy ordnance. We had this one news cycle that was terrible. It was a Saturday morning. We just had the horrible news dumped on us. I remember the team came to me like, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do for a response?" I was like, "Guys, don't worry. We're going to do nothing because at this rate, in a couple hours, there'll be more bad news. They'll come and knock off the table." But I think there are a couple important lessons here for the takeaway.
The fire will put out the flooding will put out the fire.
Yeah, so let's not overreact here. But this is, going back to the A team. Remember Hannibal Smith? I love it when a plan comes together. That this pushback effort, and again, this includes the White House's team. This is our all stars on Capitol Hill.
Big time.
People
The
out
fire
there, whether it
breathers.
be people like John Fredericks giving us a radio platform to do it. Steve and Raheem and myself. Everybody, our constitutional law experts.
Guys of the campaign.
Guys of the campaign, the RNC, which
all
didn't
the
waver.
outside groups, Jenny Beth Martin and her thing, Amy Kramer, all these people that came together.
Right.
Adam Braden.
Everybody
all the people
we just had to bring some commonality and unity around making sure people knowing that there were others who didn't think President Trump did anything wrong, who refused to cede a single inch, and who said, hey, let's not worry if they do a Friday night or Sunday night New York Times dump, because we know the facts are our friends. And we're going to go through, we're going to find the buried lead. They think this is a negative story. Actually, this clears him. They think this is, here's some O and B memos from June. Well, guess what? That blows up the 3 days to
Raheem
remember
Gassam went through, and the team here was so amazing, went through all 7,000 pages of the thing, and the buried leads you came up with that spun back on them. Hey, actually, this is not that bad.
Some great work, Raheem.
And it turned out that, hey, that's what he kept saying. This is why today, bring up John Bolton, bring up Mulvaney, bring up the mix, not a hostile witness, bring up the OMB guys, all the emails. There's nothing. Put John under cross-examination. Let Pompeo and everybody else. Who cares? You're going to see that in the work. There's nothing here. There's no big deal. But give us the whistleblower. Give us, as you can see, the second whistleblower that's magically evaporated. Disappeared. Give us Schiff as a fact witness. Right? Give us those things. That is the crime of the century. And hey, that will be breaking stories every day. The world will be mesmerized by that, because you're kind of putting I don't want to say that, you're putting the administrative state on trial.
I just want to, before we get to the next thing, which is going to be going back to the House, subpoenaing of Bolton, resetting the whole process, and we'll get into that in a second. Some of the things that you just said are so important for the audience, and the audience especially, which is engaged and doing things themselves, because I know a lot of people out there are not just passive. They're not just consumers of this information. They weaponize it themselves at local level, talking to their neighbors, talking to their families, talking in their local communities, taking action on this. Some of the things you said, I remember the Saturday, I think afternoon it was, when we found out that the David Holmes testimony was not the same as Bill Taylor's. And I was ringing around Washington, D.C. that day being like, hey, who can I talk to get this elevated up, onto the media, to get people to talk about it? And it was crickets for a while. People were like, what are you talking about, dude? It's Saturday. We're not doing anything
I
here.
also remember when you found the guy with the license plate and all the license plate, Jason, the license plates. This stuff, the research was incredible to come up with.
Free Crimea.
But here's one thing. Here's one thing I want to make sure there's a commonality. Why did we reach out to John Fredericks? John Fredericks, as you know, Jason's great Radio Row in the war room at the Trump Tower on Election Day. One schleb showed up. He had this idea. Let's have a Radio Row. I said, that's amazing. What a genius idea. One guy shows up. It's John Fredericks. Okay.
I remember first when we walked in the door and he's there, and he was there before I was there on Election Day. And so we come in. He's out there in the hallway broadcasting because he didn't have a swipe card. We walk in, and Kalen, who is my right hand man on the campaign, looks and goes, "We just got one guy out there." I'm like, no, you're missing it. We have one guy. Hillary doesn't have any.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're going to win this thing.
No, but you're missing the broader point. You didn't just have one guy. You had the Godzilla of truth.
That's right. Hey, we did.
Ladies and gentlemen.
The Oracle of the Deplorables. No, but here's the thing. The commonality. Everybody that came on this show, everybody that supported us and gave us information and helped us and all that, there's one commonality. They all are fighters, and they like fights. Okay? Folks, this is why Trump, whether you love him, he hasn't had your cup of tea, you like the policies, he's a stone cold fighter. right? He is not going to back down. You see, yesterday he walks into the State of the Union. He had that game face on, right? And when that was such a throwdown and punch out. Nancy Pelosi didn't know what hit her. Going forward, this is going to make 2016, which for the veterans of 2016 say nothing could be harder than that. It's going to make it look like a picnic compared to what's installed. They only have one alternative, and that alternative, that's why Michael Bloomberg, a guy with $71 billion, said, hey, my opening bid, I got $2 billion to stop him, okay? Michael Bloomberg is not going to be taking those ads out on his climate change policy. He's not going to be taking those ads out on his health care policy. He's doing that now to try to up his ratings to president. This is all about using Bernie Sanders or Mayor Pete or Hillary Clinton, when she eventually gets in the race, as the weapon to go after and destroy Trump. They can't do it on personalities. They cannot do it on policies. They have one alternative, orange man bad. And they've tried historically, they've put the country through a constitutional crisis at a time that there's so much other business in the world to do, and they don't care. What they care about is one thing, the removal of Donald J. Trump from office, and they will do it any method they can possibly do it.
I would even say it's worse. It's the removal of Donald J. Trump from office, the destruction of his supporters, the elimination of anyone who believes in the conservative and the populist ideals that got him elected, this counterculture revolution that pushed back and got our country going in the right direction again. It is a complete destruction of that. You saw it in their disdain for the state of Iowa Monday night when the Democrats in the media were talking about never having to go back to Iowa, as if the only reason they'd ever step foot in the state was because of those darn pesky caucuses. So they can now just live in New York and D.C. and L.A., and that's their...
They didn't think about that in the Obama years when they were winning Iowa, right?
Right.
As soon as this thing flipped. Listen, if you liked a fight and you're a fighter, this is your time, because I got to tell you, and Amy Kramer said it best day, and she's a fighter from way back. I mean, she was here in she and Jenny Beth Martin, all the Tea Party people, they were going block by block to drag people to the polls in 2010 with no money, and this would had that huge victory. It's about you have to have a game, and it's not about being just on social media. It's not about sharing stuff. That's all important. You got to do that, but you've got to get engaged. You've got to get engaged here, and this is a mobilization election. This is a mobilization election. It's their side versus our side. I'm a big believer in democracy. I think our democracy is more robust than ever. We just had a massive turnout for the midterms, 113 million people. I got to tell you, this year in November 2020, it's going to be a massive turnout, right? Bloomberg's money is going to he's going to show that they can turn them out on their side. We have to turn it everybody. So the John Fredericks radio show, all these regional shows in AM radio, plus all the websites to get the information you need. But now it is your time to get engaged. And there's no work too small. The one thing I admire about the left and how they won in 2018, they went back to the Tea Party principles, door to door, voter registration, voter engagement, get out the vote, right? And that's knocking on doors. That's selling people with a passion of why you believe in Trump and why you believe in Trumpism.
Just want to mention one thing as well while we're on this. I know we've got a historic show tomorrow morning as well. The idea of expunging the record has come up in the last day. When the Republicans retake the House later on this year, if they can make that happen, people are now talking about expunging. You know, Nancy Pelosi says he will be impeached forever. Not so. There is historic precedent, and Louis Gohmert was talking about this, to actually reverse this. So this is where we're going. This is exclusive news. This is war room expungement.
I'd love that. What are you talking about? By the way, on Andrew Jackson, they did that. They censored him and then uncensored him.
That's it.
And there is there's a bond between Jackson and Jackson and Trump, a populism and also a tough fellow. John, we got about 30 seconds left. We appreciate your support. Obviously, we're going to talk with you tomorrow morning. Anything you got in your closing ideas?
When is Donald J. Trump going to get over continuing to endorse people like Mitt Romney, bring in John Bolton's, these never-Trumpers? Is this the day that he says to himself, this idea that I have that somehow I can get these people in and be nice to them, and then they'll see the America First policy? I mean, Mitt Romney is a rat weasel, begged him for a job, came crawling on his knees for an endorsement, and what he did that is he sold out entire Trump nation. This has nothing to do with the president. He sold out the deplorables. He sold out everybody that backs Trump, and he's a weasel, and he's a rat. And when do we get rid of these people? That's my question.
Well, we'll start talking about that tomorrow morning. John Fredericks, our co-producer, a rat and a weasel. I see
think
that.
the
I guess
Godzilla
that's what Fast Company meant when they said rollicking radio format, right?
Exactly. Raheem Kassam, Jason Miller. Okay, go to warroom.org. You'll see us tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., episode 153.